Welcome to today's biology revision class. So in this biology revision class, we are going to look at some of the questions which can come on your nutrition in plants part, in your essay part. So this time I'm trying a lot to focus on essay questions so that I can help you, because most pupils fail a lot on essay questions. Why? They don't know how to write essays. Yeah, so mind you, in biology we don't just write essays anyhow. You have to include what are known as the biological terms and key terms. These two things I will show you how you can include them in your essay. So before I start, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Also comment if you want any help in any topic, and also share the video to your friends. Yeah, and for those of you who are writing your GCE, I have two special packages. We have biology paper 2, where I've solved every question from 2020 to 2024. It is going at 50 kwacha. And also I have for mathematics, which has 252 pages, which has all the past papers for paper 1 and easy explanation to follow. It is going at 75. You can see them at the screen. So inbox me if you want to get them, so that you can revise in your last minute, because it is crucial to get good marks. So to begin, our question is saying, explain how the internal parts of a leaf are adapted to photosynthesis. So our first question is 12 marks, which means we have to write at least something on this one. So how does an internal part of a leaf adapt to photosynthesis? So if you remember in my previous video, I talked about the internal leaf, where I said that it has parts like the upper epidermis, it has the what? The palisade, mesophyll. It also has what? The spongy, mesophyll. And I also talked about it's having the what? The stomata and the what? The lower epidermis. Yeah, and it has also what is known as the vesicular bundle. Yeah, so these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these 5 structures are the structures which enable a plant to perform what? Or to adapt to photosynthesis. So this is just a summary. If you forget, just remember the plant has the upper epidermis, palisade mesophyll, spongy mesophyll, we have the stomata and the vesicular bundle. Adaptation. Yeah. So now let's explain them in details, because this is a 12-mark essay. You have to write something on each of the points. So to begin, how can you begin a question which is saying explain the internal parts of the leaf? So first, define what? A keyword which can be defined. Which one? Photosynthesis. So that's the first thing which you need to define. So try to look for a word which you can define in the question, so that it gives you an introduction to the what? The question. So always start with the introduction, either the definition, or where it is located, or if you are talking about hormones, which part it produces it. So these are tips and tricks to help you pass biology. Biology is simple once you follow the instruction and the tips. Yeah. So to begin, you say, so you begin by saying photosynthesis is the process by which green plants manufacture their own food, which is glucose. Yeah, so once you write like this, meaning you have introduced your essay, because they are talking about how an internal leaf is adapted. So now you have to define first what is photosynthesis, because how will you know what adaptation are there if you don't know the meaning of photosynthesis? That's the first thing. So now we have defined photosynthesis is the process by which green plants manufacture their own food. So don't say plants. Yeah, I've seen most pupils write as a process by which plant. The important part is green, because not all plants do photosynthesis unless those with green leaves, because they contain chlorophyll. You have to understand that. Not all plants manufacture their own food, only green plants. Yeah. So now after you have defined, you can move on now to say the leaf adapts for photosynthesis because it has upper epidermis So once you write upper epidermis, now write what happens to the upper epidermis for it to perform photosynthesis. So now you say it has the upper epidermis, which is, so it has, because it has the upper epidermis, which is transparent and covered by a thin waxy cuticle. So the words I'm underlining, don't forget to include them. So you say the upper epidermis has which is transparent and it is covered by a thin cuticle. So this transparent and thin cuticle are what are known as the adaptation, because these are the differences to other parts. So now, why does it have a transparent and a thin waxy? So that to allow maximum penetration of light. So to allow maximum penetration of light while minimizing water loss. Yeah, so that is our first adaptation. So the plant or the leaf has what is known as the upper epidermis, which is transparent and is covered by a thick wax. So we know that wax is responsible for what? Reducing the loss of water, and it also allows the maximum penetration of sunlight. Yeah, so this is the first. Then you also say now it also contains the palisade mesophyll located just below the upper epidermis. So we are saying that the next structure which is responsible for the adaptation to photosynthesis is what? Palisade mesophyll. And most of you know that palisade mesophyll is tightly packed with column-shaped cells, which are known as palisade cells, and they have a lot of chloroplasts to maximize light absorption. So you have to pay attention to the difference. When we are talking about the palisade mesophyll, which contains chlorophyll, we are talking about maximum light absorption. Then when we are talking about the upper epidermis, we are talking about penetration, how light is entering the leaf. Then when it reaches the palisade cell, we are talking about how now that cell is absorbing light because of chloroplast. That's how you should be writing step by step. Yeah, so we say that it also contains what? Also contains, so remember biology is about spelling. So it also contains the palisade mesophyll located just below the upper epidermis with a lot of palisade cells containing chloroplasts to maximize what? To maximize light absorption for photosynthesis. For photosynthesis. Yeah, we have written how many? We have written 2. We have written the upper epidermis. We have also talked about the palisade mesophyll, how it helps in photosynthesis. Yeah. So we are saying it maximizes, right? It maximizes light absorption. Yeah. Moving on to our sponge mesophyll. So remember, if you remember closely about the internal structure of the leaf, I talked about these structures. Yeah. So those that have watched that video, they probably have an idea of what I'm talking about. But even if you're watching the video for the first time, my explanation is quite simple and straightforward. No need of getting confused here. You're just saying photosynthesis. We're writing the essay, how the leaf is adapted to photosynthesis, specifically green leaves. Yeah. So moving on to our third structure, you can say that it has a spongy mesophyll layer. So we're talking about a layer here. It has a spongy mesophyll layer which contains loosely. So here the cells are loosely packed. Why are the cells loosely packed? That's the question you should be asking. Loosely arranged cells. So the reason these cells are loosely arranged with large spaces, with large air spaces, someone who has, with your common sense, you can understand that if something is loosely packed and it contains a lot of air spaces, it means it will facilitate what? The diffusion of carbon dioxide and oxygen, because where there is air, there is diffusion. Yeah. So remember that if you hear the word air in biology, you should relate it to diffusion, because we are talking about molecules diffusing from a place of higher concentration to a place of lower concentration. Yeah, so it has loosely arranged cells with large air spaces, facilitating what? Facilitating the rapid diffusion of carbon dioxide into this leaf and oxygen. Yeah, so we have written how many so far? We have talked about 3. So here you have gotten your 6 marks. Now the 2 again you need to get, because you mentioned the structure, you explain it 2 marks. You explain 2 marks. So you have to mention 6 structures for you to get the entire 12 marks. Yeah, so moving on to our stomata. So what is the function of the stomata now? So you say additionally, the leaf as stomata and guard cells. So these stomata and guard cells, they are mainly found where? At the lower epidermis. We say it as the upper and the lower. So the lower epidermis contains stomata and guard cell. What are the function of the stomata? So the stomata and guard cells are pores that opens and closes to allow gaseous exchange. What do we mean? So to allow the movement of carbon dioxide from the environment into the cell, it has to pass through the stomata. For removal of what? For removal of oxygen from the cell into the stomata, and from the removal of oxygen from the leaf into the environment, it also requires what? Stomata, because these are what? Pores, or these are what? What can you say in simple terms? You can say that these are tiny pores which allows the diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Moving on to our last part. Yeah. Then you can also say now, in conclusion, the leaf also has a vesicular bundle system which contains what? The xylem and phloem. Yeah, so the vesicular bundle contains the xylem and the phloem. So here is 1 mark for explain. Now explain what is the function. So the xylem and the phloem, which is the vesicular bundle, are responsible. So here you can say it has also the vesicular bundle system responsible for transporting water and manufactured food to the other parts of the plant. Plants respectively. Yeah, so what do we mean when we say respective? So we are saying that the xylem transports water while the phloem transports manufactured food. So the way I've written them and the way I've written their function is the way they do what? They perform their function. Yeah. So this is how you can write an essay on the adaptation of the internal parts to photosynthesis. You say one does the upper epidermis, responsible for absorbing or responsible for allowing maximum penetration of light and minimizing of water. It has also the palisades mesophyll layer containing palisade cells which are rich in chloroplast for maximum absorption of light. It also has the spongy mesophyll layer which is loosely packed and contains a lot of air spaces responsible in the rapid diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide into and out of the cell. It also has the stomata, which are pores, which allows the entry of carbon dioxide and the leaving of oxygen. It also has the vesicular band responsible for transporting what? Manufactured food and water from the roots to other parts of the body or the palisade cell, so that the photosynthesis can take its place.